Multiple transfers have said it. The intensity at Ohio State is on a different level than at Alabama, and it shows up every day in practice.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Thursday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. During today's show, we will discuss how Matt Patricia's coaching style helps Ohio State's players play faster and freer, as well as the importance of the Buckeyes always competing on and off the field. But first, everyone loves a good soundbite. They also love when that soundbite compares Ohio State to other big boy brands in college football. And this year's Ohio State team has three guys that transferred in that played at Alabama a year ago. They also have a transfer in Earl Little Jr. that played at Alabama fresh out of high school. And so you have four different players that have their own experiences, that have their own encounters with coaches, that have their own unique perspectives about what it was like to play for that school in Tuscaloosa. Well, James Smith and Earl Little Jr. recently got behind the mic and compared the two schools. And when you hear what they had to say, you're going to think that Ohio State is in the right spot. They're doing something correct, because if you're doing something better than Alabama, you're doing something that's going to set you apart from the other schools around the country. Earl Little Jr., when comparing not just Ohio State and Alabama, he also compared Ohio State, Alabama, and even Florida State, the last school he played at. He said the level of competition day in and day out was just different at Ohio State. He also went on to say you have to bring your best every single day. James Smith, defensive tackle transfer from Alabama, he had this to say when comparing the Buckeyes and the Crimson Tide, quote, "I feel like the intensity is different. I don't want to even say the intensity. It's just like everything's so intentional. Everybody's already laid out. You know, they have a new coaching staff at Alabama. So it's like they're still trying to learn and stuff. Here, it's already stable. And like they already know, end quote, basically they already know what to do." And that's perfect. That's a perfect way to lay out and to describe the differences in his own eyes between Alabama and Ohio State. And he's not wrong to discuss the coaching changes. Kalen DeBoer is entering year 3 at Alabama, and he's following the best coach in college football. And so those are big shoes to fill. People down there still praise Nick Saban and revere him in a way that you don't revere many coaches. And so he has to live with that every single day, knowing if I mess up here or if we don't win this game, people want to say, man, you're the wrong guy. We needed a guy to come in and keep us at Saban's level. No, that's very hard. What's also very hard is what Ryan Day has been able to build and sustain at Ohio State. He also followed a college football legend in Urban Meyer, a Hall of Famer. When you're following that, you may think, man, am I ready for this? Am I going to be able to fill his shoes? Am I going to be able to take the standard up a little bit? These are things you're wondering and asking yourself. But when you think about what Ryan Day has done, he has made this program his. From the physicality, from being very intentional in practice, from the intensity the players play with every single day, he demands perfection. He challenges them in various ways all the time, and it's helped them have a program that is clearly on a different playing level and path than Alabama. Now, you may be able to say, Jay, are you sure you're going to come out here and agree with these transfers? I mean, you know that every now and then Jay does not agree with things Ryan Day says or some of the transfers say. Their perspective is their perspective. But also, their perspective, it kind of aligns with our own eyeballs. When we watch a college football game on a Saturday, and let's say Ohio State is big noon, and Alabama plays at 3:30 on the ABC. If you watch the Buckeye game, then immediately go to the ABC, you're going to see a difference between how Ohio State plays and how Alabama plays. They recruit the same players. They are going all over the country to find and to lure the best players to their campuses. So it's not like they're going out there to try to get different players. No. They have elite coaches. They have great tradition. They have a lot of the similar traits and characteristics of big boy brands in college football. Well, what's the difference? Clearly, the competition, the intensity, the intentionality, all of those things line up and go with what Ryan Day has not only been preaching, but what the players provide every single day. And I'll echo this again. I might say it a few times during today's show. This is what you want. You want to have players, you want to have a staff that align with your vision to the point that players will leave Alabama. And Alabama, yes, they're not on the same playing level as Ohio State, but most schools aren't. There are over 135 FBS programs right now in college football. There might be, this may be being generous. If I'm being generous, there might be 5 schools that are on Ohio State's level. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm being for real. There might be 5 schools on Ohio State's level. Alabama's not one of those schools. But if you're not on that upper echelon and that exclusive group, you may be like, if Ohio State's A, Bama might be a B plus, or if Ohio State's an A plus, Bama might be an A minus. I mean, the gap is right there. Isn't that large? But there's a gap. And the gap is there in large part because of what Ryan Day has done. Think about what's happened a few years ago now. 2020 and through 2023, there were some really good Ohio State teams. But you could tell there was something different and there was something that was missing compared to some of the teams that played under Urban Meyer. The intentionality, the intensity at times, the physicality, the level of play you needed, being able to play fast and free. I mean, all those things at times, not all the time, but at times were missing from Ohio State games, Ohio State teams. They were still winning. They were smacking people sometimes. You could just feel something was a little bit different. All of a sudden, something shifted in 2024. It was getting better in 2023, but in 2024, what you found was Ryan Day's fingerprint and blueprint all over the team, and it showed up and it helped them win a national championship. No, they didn't go undefeated, but nobody's demanding perfection. But at the end of the day, Ohio State needs to be able to compete to beat some of the bigger teams in the country. You need to beat the better teams in the country, as well as beating Michigan. If Michigan is 500, wax them. Get them up out of here. None of that stuff that happened in the 2024 season when Michigan was absolutely hot garbage and Ohio State laid an egg. None of that stuff. No. None of that stuff at all. You play with the intensity that will show everybody when they're watching your film. If they don't bring their A++ game, they can't stay on the same level with you. They cannot have a fight, have a chance in the fight when playing you. You must do that every single day. The intentionality that Ryan Day, that the players are discussing, these transfers, you've heard Ryan Day discuss that too. You've heard Ryan Day discuss the importance of competing and going all out and making sure you do it in practice. Because if you're doing it in practice, you're probably going to do that in the game too. Practice habits translate to the game. And if you have bad practice habits, you're going to have some pretty bad plays in the game. If you're very intentional, if you're very fast, if you're very intense during practice, that's going to translate to the game. But also, think about it. I've said it before, I think earlier this week. Sometimes the lights might be too bright for somebody. That goes to the eye of Ryan Day and the other coaches to say, well, he's doing great here. Will the lights be too bright on a college football Saturday? And if they are, you must reevaluate if it's worth putting that player on the field. I would say it's not. They have to find a replacement that will help the team be the best it can be. Speaking of being the best it can be, Ohio State is doing something very important in the weight room, and it's going to help them be a force on the field in the fall. We will discuss what they're doing and why it's very important after the break. This is Locked on Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Once again, make sure you head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Thank y'all for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen of the day and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You can get Locked On Buckeyes ad-free with the Everydayer Club, plus members-only Discord access and more. Join at lockedonbuckeyes.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Ohio State has been a force under Ryan Day of late, and it's something that I don't think is going to change. The way that Ryan Day has put this roster together and the coaching staff, and the way that he has adapted at an elite level to changes that are not slowing down in this sport is going to help Ohio State under Ryan Day's leadership be a team that every year is not just competing to win the conference title, but is competing, and it is a true contender to win the national championship as well. Well, while you're trying to win the national championship, you are being very intentional in your practice. You're being intense in everything you do, but also you're competing in the weight room. And that's one thing that Earl Little Jr. said in regards to some of the things he said while comparing Alabama and Ohio State. It was something that didn't really happen at Alabama, which kind of surprises me because his time in Tuscaloosa was aligned with the final 2 years of Nick Saban being the head coach. So James Smith was at Alabama for 1 year under Saban and a couple of years under Kalen DeBoer. Earl Little Jr., he only played under Nick Saban. So if you hear that a guy who played under the best coach in the sport, he compares and say, we didn't really compete in the weight room. Yeah, that may be a sign that the Hall of Famer is about to call it quits, but also that's not a great look. If I'm Nick Saban, I might be a little upset that he let that cat out the bag and said, well, we did compete in the weight room like that. But also, if it's real, it's real. You can get mad all you want to, but he ain't lying. But here's what he had to say. Earl Little Jr., that is, the former Alabama safety, about competing in the weight room. Quote, at Alabama, we didn't compete in the weight room, how we do here. So it's literally like everything you're doing at Ohio State, you're going to compete, and you have to bring your best every single day, end quote. And this is a question, a response to a question of asked to him about comparing his time at Ohio State to him being at Alabama and Florida State. Now, he only mentioned the weight room stuff at Alabama. I don't know if that was the same thing he would have said about Florida State. I have no idea. I know Florida State wasn't on Ohio State's level, nor were they on Alabama's level. So it wasn't like Florida State was just this juggernaut, and they were just doing things that were just so elite at every. Oh, no. Florida State was not that at all. And I wish there was a little bit deeper dive in the response to what happened at Florida State, because if Tallahassee was a little bit more intense to Alabama, why were y'all losing so much? I ain't trying to be mean, but that's my question to anybody out there. Why were y'all losing so much? Why were your players not as good as the others? That's a good question to ask. But it's also a good question, not so much a question to ask, but just a way to appreciate what Ryan Day has done, because Ryan Day is preaching every day. You compete. You're intense. You execute at an elite level. He is preaching the same message over and over and over again. And as he's preaching that message, the players are picking up what he's putting down, but they're also becoming the mouthpiece of the program. They are the ones that are doing the dirty work, to be able to say, for Ryan Day. Ryan Day doesn't have to really say much because the players police themselves. And if somebody ain't competing, if somebody ain't going all out, they're going to get called out while getting passed by because they aren't giving their all. This is what you want. This is the kind of program every coach dreams of, a program where guys leave elite programs, guys leave places where they were starters. They come to you to fall into a bigger vision. If Earl Little stayed at Florida State, he still would have been drafted in the 2027 draft. He still would have been a guy that would have been a highly sought after by NFL teams, but he still could have been somebody that didn't make the playoff, could have not. There was a possibility of them not making a bowl game, and his collegiate career wouldn't have been ending on a high note like he wanted to. James Smith, Quay Russo, they were a package deal. They could have stayed at Alabama. Kalen DeBoer's not a bad coach. No, he's a good coach. It's just he is not as good as others. But most people aren't as good as others. But it would have been easier for them to stay at Alabama and say, well, yeah, we're competing. We're going through some pretty good things. We're in the SEC. We're in the some say the most prestigious conference in the country. We're here where we want to be. But, man, while you're here where you want to be, are you raising your own draft stock? Are you playing a whole lot more? Are you finding ways to compete on and off the field? And if you are, but other guys aren't, your team will not be as good as you want your team to be. These are some of the things that players are thinking about as far as where you are and where you could go, both in college and in the NFL. But also, Ryan Day knows if you compete in practice, that's going to translate to the practice field. Excuse me, if you compete in the weight room, that's going to translate to the practice field. If you compete, if you're very intentional and intense in practice, that will translate to the game field. And if you have that translate to the game field, your team's going to be pretty good. That's putting it lightly. Your team's going to be really good. And then, let's just say you are one of the better talented players on the team. If you are intense and physical and intentional in everything you do in the weight room, that translates to the practice field, then to the game field. NFL teams will see that. And they're going to look at you and say, if he's doing this now, we want that guy on our team because he is instantly going to make us better. And that's the goal. The goal is to make sure that when you bring guys in from the portal, they're going to make you better. But also, you want to know that they can handle the limelight. They can handle the pressure. They can handle everything you're going to demand of them. Sometimes you got to go down to the FCS level. Sometimes you got to go down to a group of 5 level. Sometimes you have to go somewhere that's not the most expected place to go to find a player that can make you better now. I love when these guys talk like this. I'm looking forward to hearing not Dominic Kelly. I mean, Dominic Kelly, maybe if he was talking about Ohio State and Georgia, cool. I'm here for it, 100%. Also, a little side note: I don't have the roster right in front of me. But as I'm talking about transfers, we realize that you may not know their numbers. James Smith is number 3. Earl Little Jr. is number 1. They both play defense. James Smith is a D tackle. Earl Little Jr. is a safety. And as we start to get closer to the spring game, which is about less than 10 days from now, I am going to start throwing numbers. I'm associating the player's number with them on the show so you know during the spring game, this is the guy we're talking about. This is a quarterback. Of course, Satan's number 10. That hasn't changed. JJ is still number 4. Hensman still number 75. We're going to talk about some of the guys. I believe Montgomery is still 51. We're going to talk about them and just associate a number with their name. So you know during the spring game, when you're watching it, you know that guy is this number. If you see that number, you know it's this guy. So while players have changed their numbers, and even while there are 51 new players, some of the guys that aren't a part of that 51 group, they are still players that were there last year that changed their numbers. Keanu Jackson Jr. is now number 2. Legend Bay is number 2. These are off the top of the dome. But we will get deeper to some of the numbers and connecting them to players. So you are more well-informed as we get closer and closer to the spring game being kicked off on April 18th. If you can't tell, man, I love ball. I look forward to watching more ball, watching more Ohio State, diving into the film of the individual transfers and some of the high school guys. So you know everything you're getting from these players as we get closer and closer to the season being kicked off on Labor Day weekend. Speaking of things being kicked off, we get closer to a big moment in the calendar. That is the NFL draft, which is next week. It's hard a couple of weeks. 3 weeks. I forget the exact time, but it's still hard to believe the draft is almost here. Well, Matt Patricia's coaching style, it helps Ohio State's players play faster and freer on the field, but also helps some guys that are former Buckeyes that are trying to get drafted as high as they can in the upcoming NFL draft. We'll discuss what he does and how he impacts Buckeye draft prospects after the break. This is Locked on Buckeyes.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. UCLA made history by winning its first NCAA women's basketball national championship, dominating South Carolina 79-51. The Bruins controlled the game from start to finish with elite defense and balanced scoring, finishing the season 37-1. Star center Lauren Betts was named Most Outstanding Player, leading a team effort that capped a 31-game winning streak. Under head coach Corey Close, UCLA secured a landmark title that has been decades in the making. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes. I'm coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Thank you all for tapping Locked On Buckeyes, for making this show your first listen of the day, and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. As many of you know, the college basketball portal is open. There are only 14 days for college basketball players to enter said portal. I believe the number I saw, the percentage, is close to half of the players that are college basketball players on the men's side in D1 are in the portal. That's insane. That is crazy. But what's going to be crazy is if Ohio State doesn't use the portal to their advantage to put together a very strong and competitive roster for the upcoming season. We will continue to filter in some extra shows to let you know who the Buckeyes are going to be bringing in for visits, who they are connected to, and the players that might join the Buckeye roster in the upcoming season. That's going to be right here. Tap in. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Buckeyes. Hit the follow button on the app you are using right now to listen or watch this show so you don't miss a beat, so you're up to date with everything going on with the Buckeye football and basketball teams. Speaking of being up to date, we are going to start doing some more more pre-draft coverage. Not draft coverage, pre-draft coverage, because the draft isn't here yet. And my guy, Ryan Roberts of A to Z Sports, is a guy we're going to be bringing in to, at least hopefully bringing in, to connect with and dive into prospects like Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, Cade McDonald, Caden Curry, and others, to hear what he sees and to hear what he has been hearing about these guys and where they might fall in the NFL draft. And a lot of the guys I just mentioned are defensive players. I don't even know if I mentioned an offensive player. Sorry, Cardinal Tate. Sorry, CJ Donaldson. But I forget if I said their names. But those guys on defense are very important. They were fortunate to be coached by Matt Patricia a year ago, as he wasn't coaching anywhere the previous year, comes to Ohio State, helps Ohio State's defense do some pretty historic stuff, but also he is also helping the players on the team play faster and freer on the field. Now you want to say, Jay, like, isn't it the coach's job to lay things out so clearly and plainly that the players are able to play very fast and free on the field? Yes, that's the goal. But my goodness, there were times when Jim Knowles was at Ohio State, the defense learned things at a very slow pace, and it hindered them from playing fast and free. Even the final year under the Jim Knowles experience, there were times that you could tell the guys weren't playing as fast and as free as they wanted to or as they should have been. That's one of Patricia's goals. Well, Patricia is coaching and teaching in concepts. He's also allowing guys to grasp his concepts very quickly. He knows how to communicate with them, and it's helping them play faster and freer on the field. And that's one thing you saw last year under Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs and Nick Benosin and Lorenzo and Cade McDonald and Tyrone Malone Jr. You name the guy that played last year, and they will echo the same thought, that Patricia helped them grasp NFL concepts, understand what was going on in every level of the defense, and they weren't overthinking or thinking 2 or 3 times about one simple decision or one decision. They were just, bam, okay, I see this, I got to go. This happens, I got to go. Oh, 3rd and 8, here's my technique. 3rd and 3, here's what I got to do. He taught things at an NFL way, but it was so clear for them to understand that it helped the Buckeyes be a force last year. And that's the goal this year. Not only to help the defense last year be a force and to be a problem for opposing offenses, that's the goal this year. And this year, you are working with a lot of new faces. Caden Curry, gone. McDonald, gone. Lorenzo, gone. Tyrone, gone. Downs, gone. Styles, gone. Reese, gone. I mean, you understand. Benosin, gone. You get where I'm going? There are a lot of guys that were big-time players for Ohio State last year that are gone. You can't lean on past successes this year and hopefully that helps you this year. No, you must do the things that you know you need to do so the defense can be the best it can be. And one thing that I thought about when it came to some of the portal pickups the Buckeyes had this year was that a lot of these guys coming in fit Patricia's mold for a defense. Quay Russaw isn't the biggest edge rusher. He's not the smallest guy either. He's not truly a linebacker in size or in playing ability, but he does have the quickness of a linebacker. He has the smarts of a linebacker. He has the ability to read like a linebacker. The next thing you know, he's more of what Patricia wants from a guy off the edge. He is a kind of player Ohio State's been trying and striving to get, but they haven't been able to get him. Why? I mean, Larry Johnson wants you to be 6'4", 6'5", 260, 265. Is that a problem? No, but when things are changing in the sport, you might have to shift your philosophy. And if you don't shift your philosophy, you better hope you can get guys that are elite, that are developed at a very high level, because if not, you might get passed by. And this goes to Patricia. I don't think he'll ever get passed by. I think as long as he is a D coordinator at Ohio State, he won't get passed by. He has always been a forward-thinking guy, even in the NFL, going from his time and his days with the Patriots in the 2000s to the 2010s. If you look at 2000s football to the 2010s football in the NFL, you will see fundamental and philosophical changes. And while things are changing, it didn't seem like that stuff was so hard for Patricia that he wasn't able to change with it. No, he adapted. He was smart. He used that pencil in his hand to help him formulate in-game adjustments so the defense would be as good as it can be. And the rest is history. If I'm a James Smith or an Earl Little Jr. or Terry Moore or Dominic Kelly or Cam Calhoun, I would want to be coached by a guy like Matt Patricia. I want to transfer in, be coached by a guy that can take what I do well, make me better, but allow me to fit in with what this defense needs. And as you do that, as that is your goal, you're going to find that the defense won't take a massive drop downward this year. No, but it'll keep the standard where it needs to be for the Buckeyes to be the best team they can be this year, because Patricia is calling the shots. I hope, I don't know if this is going to happen. Here is my hope for Ohio State football over the next some odd years. I won't put a number on it. My hope, my wish, is that Matt Patricia stays at Ohio State until he retires from coaching football. Because if you get a guy like that to stick around, as the sport changes, he's going to be ahead of the game. He's going to shift with it. He is going to make sure that as the players in high school are changing, he's going to make sure that he knows how to make the necessary adjustments so he can make sure the defense is the best it can be. If you get Ryan Day and Patricia to just be the Bud Foster of Virginia Tech, who is linked to the old coach of Virginia Tech, I forget his name. Forgive me. I am going to not like myself for forgetting his name. But if you could get that, the old Bud Foster, who was a longtime DC at Tech, who ended up retiring within the last 5 years, he was linked to that head coach. If you can get that out of Ohio State to where you get Ryan Day and Patricia to be linked together throughout the next 10, 15, 20 years, the Buckeyes are going to still be not just elite every year. They're going to be borderline having one of the best defenses during the time span, over a 20-year time span. There could be a time where Ohio State's defense is one of the best over a 20-year span because of what Matt Patricia does well and how he's able to sustain his ability to create and build and sustain relationships with players. And he's going to help them, always help them play fast and free on the football field, which is going to help guys like Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Caden Curry get drafted as high as they can, because they know, NFL teams already know, this guy is a pro now, but he was playing like a pro when he was at Ohio State. Thank you for tapping in Locked on Buckeyes and for making this show your first listen of the day. If you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked on Buckeyes ad free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonbuckeyes.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On College Basketball. You can follow me on any social media platform or jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes on a Thursday. We'll see you next time.